Hello and happy election day to all out there. Welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. It is Tuesday. It is MLB off season. There's a lot to get into, but it is election day in this country, so hopefully everybody can get out there and vote and do their civic duty. All right, let's get into baseball. And by the way, taking the girls up to vote later today. Excited for them. They're kind of excited about the whole process of it. Lot to get into from Matt Gelb in particular from The Athletic. Yesterday, he is down in San Antonio at the general managers meetings and kind of, laid out some off-season theoretical moves that Dave Dombrowski in the front office could possibly be venturing into. And then I assume last night, got to sit down with owner John Middleton. And we'll start there with John Middleton. And before we read some of these quotes here with everyone, let me just say this. John Middleton is exactly what you want to hear from an owner. We're going to read some of these quotes, but I am super encouraged at the direction and leadership of the Phillies organization after reading some of these.
It is encouraging. This is the time you want to hear some positive things, Jamie and Tyler, about the future of what they're looking to do, what's happening behind the scenes, because we just don't know. It's a guessing game. Like, we have ideas of what the Phillies should be doing in this offseason. And so it's encouraging to hear that we're not crazy. We're not making things up, that there are things that they're talking about internally that align directly with what we're looking for as well. So now my concern is don't just say what we want to hear, actually do it. Like, we don't need the words, we need the actions, we need the follow through of making some of these moves happen.
Yeah, I think having an ownership group that is willing to spend money and put the checkbook, put the money where their mouth is substantial, because there are far too many teams in this league, and we could have a 10-hour show on spending money versus not spending money. But there are far too many teams in this league that like routinely just punt, and they say, yeah, well, we got a team and we're not going to spend a whole lot of money, cash flow, blah blah blah, and it's like lip service of well, we don't really have that much money. Yes, you do. But you look around.
Lie to me.
You look around the league, and it's not. And I don't mean just bad teams, right? I'm not just talking about the Marlins and the Pirates and the A's. I'm talking about teams that have been competitive in the past. Talking about Milwaukee. Talking about the Rays. Talking about now the Orioles' new ownership group seems like they're going to be willing to buck the trend a little bit, but the Orioles for a really long time. So to have a team that has been competitive, yes, obviously the way that things happened at the end of the season is discouraging. But a team that's been competitive for each of the last 3 seasons with an ownership group that's willing to spend maybe even more money is a significant help for all of us this offseason.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. I feel as though, what you guys said, we need to see the action, spending the money. All these things were hit on. It's a phenomenal piece by Matt Gelb. So if you get the opportunity to read it, I encourage you to do it. I'm not going to just sit here and read his story for you, but we will hit on some of the big facts from it. And some of the things John Middleton said, I'm absolutely kind of like in shock that he's real in a way, because it's almost exactly the things you want to hear. And it's about enacting hard change. And let's just start there with that, because I thought, to me, this was one of the coolest anecdotes from the Gelb story. And it had to do with John Middleton talking about the change that is needed and forcing the change, and not just saying, hey, we'd like to see it anymore. And again, we talked about Kevin Long yesterday, and maybe he has that equity with them to actually demand change and not just suggest it anymore. And the story was this: John Middleton in 2011 was sitting with Roy Halladay's father, watching Roy pitch. And Roy was, buzzing through a lineup as he typically did. And Middleton said to Roy Halladay's father, hey, I heard you were Roy's first pitching coach. He must, still hang on to a pitch or two of what you taught him. And he was like, no, nothing. He doesn't use anything I taught him. And Middleton was like, what do you mean? And he said he wasn't being successful in the minor leagues. And he realized that he had become predictable and he had to reset and restart everything. And he went down to the minors and he learned 5 new pitches. He was like, there may have been a variation of something I taught him, but essentially everything was new because he knew he had to change or he was going to be out. And Middleton was like, oh, wow, really impressive. And then later, a couple weeks later, I think Matt Gelb points out it was like 3 weeks later, he's sitting with Michael Jack Schmidt, and he's telling him the story about Roy Halladay's dad and what Roy did. And Schmidt looks at Middleton and says, yeah, I mean, John, I've had 3 different swings in my career. And John Middleton's point was, he's like, I had to remake myself. You become predictable, then you change, then the pitcher changes, and then you have to adjust to that change. He's like, I changed my swing 3 different times throughout my Hall of Fame career. And John Middleton's point was, this is what I'm using to talk to the players this year, that Roy Halladay and Mike Schmidt, 2 of the best that what they ever did, never stayed complacent. You know, they changed everything. And that's his message to the team this offseason. And he said it starts now. And I thought that was a really cool anecdote from the story.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, we already had heard the comments about buy-in, and we've already talked a lot about just some of the, especially the older guys, the veterans that are stuck in their ways. But in sports, you cannot, beyond even just baseball, you cannot get predictable. You cannot get stale. You cannot get complacent to a point that opponents know exactly what you're going to do. And in baseball, it's a sport that's 10 times worse because for your pitch, for your swing, if everybody has the playbook on you, then it's very easy to figure out how to pitch against you or how to, take at bat. So I love that idea of bringing in these historic, legendary icons to be able to show, listen, even they had to do it. Even Halladay had to do it. Even Schmidt had to do it. It's not just you. It's not a Nick Castellanos problem or a Bryce Harper problem or Kyle Schwarber or Trey Turner problem. This is the reality that the greatest have had to evolve and change to continue to make it so that they could stay at the top. And so I hope that they actually listen to this. I think a lot of these messages are needed because it is very evident, as we've been seeing play out in games, but as we've been hearing in terms of behind the scenes, that the buy-in or lack thereof also contributes to guys feeling like, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. I got this. But yes, you do know what you're doing, but it's okay to also get help and change up how you're performing and change up some of your routines, depending if it's more the hitting guys, because the pitchers are, I feel like, doing a good job of evolving, especially the starting pitchers for the Phillies. It's more of their positional players. So
yeah, it's offensive.
I like that this winter is about let's take everybody back to step number 1, rebuild the foundation in that sense of individual players, their makeups, their tendencies, their, what you're seeing from them, because I think this is the offseason. You need to scale it back and reevaluate what you're doing.
So I think that the one thing about baseball that I find beautiful and just mind-bogglingly terrifying at the same time is it is one of the most difficult sports to play successfully. But when you boil it down to hitting versus pitching, it's the old anecdote of hitting is timing, pitching's upsetting timing. And that can be true, I think, heading into not just the individual pitch or the individual moment, but that can be true to front office things as well. And maybe not upsetting timing or timing, but staying ahead of the curve or adjusting to a curve after you've kind of hit it, right? So I think about on the field stuff where when a specific pitch maybe takes over the league, for example, the one that's most recently taken over the league is the sweeper, right?
Yeah, Caleb Cotham's a big reason for it.
And the Phillies, if you look across the lineup of the construct of the Phillies rotation and their pitching staff, it seems to me almost every single Phillies pitcher throws either a sweeper or some kind of pitch that dives vertically downward. So a splitter or some variation of a splitter. Aaron Nola is one of the few that doesn't. He's more curveball, fastball reliant, but what you're trying to do is get your staff ahead of the curve or to get back up to the curve. I think the same can be said for front office success. If you are looking to buy in, like we've heard, Renee, you brought up, they've used that phrase a billion times over the last couple of weeks. I think part of buying into something is making that adjustment to either catch back up or to get ahead. And if it's the case for the Phillies where they've spent a lot of money, but in order to catch back up or to get back ahead, they need to spend a little bit more money. it seems like the ownership group is willing to do it.
And here's a great quote to that point, Tyler. And for some reason, fair or not, Trey Turner's always the guy I think of with this. Look, there's two super rich players on the team, and that's Bryce Harper and Trey Turner. So I think they get rightfully the most eyeballs and kind of microscope on them. And Bryce Harper is kind of perfect, in a way. It was a weird month of powerless ball from him, but outside of that, there's no complaints. I think there's complaints to be had. So I always think this is talking about Trey Turner first, and then maybe a couple other guys second. But here's the quote from John Middleton to Matt Gelb about that change that is needed. From the standpoint of internal work, there's a clear understanding and agreement amongst all in the hierarchy, from the front office people, the coaching staff, that collectively we've got to be more forceful in getting players to address their areas of weakness. We've been having conversations in a more forceful way instead of making suggestions. This isn't going to change just because you show up in the middle of February or something like that. I love hearing forceful and not suggestions anymore. And this came on the heels of talking about how Dave Dombrowski and staff were in the office having the hard conversations the morning after getting eliminated. So it seems as though everybody's in agreement here. The same is not acceptable. Obviously, there's going to be roster changes that come, but the core pieces that are here, they are demanding change, not suggesting it anymore.
And you have to. I mean, you can't continue to pacify this and dumb it down. It's unacceptable. The team has, regardless what they've done in the regular season, even with winning more games each regular season, they've got knocked out earlier each postseason. And not to mention the same issues we've seen in the past 2 years were consistent year to year. So taking 2022 out of it, looking just at 2023 and 2024, they had the same issues. You cannot continue to just roll with, oh, everything will be fine. They'll get better. This is baseball. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. No, you have to actually make some meaningful changes and have some hard conversations. So I do feel like part of the issue, and this is the vibe I've gotten from the Phillies in the past, was like that country club. Everybody knows what they're doing. They'll do their part. They'll figure it out, instead of actually like locking in. I don't know if it's a fear of hurting people's feelings or not wanting to be the bad guy or wanting to just be positive all the time, but you can't be positive when you are consistently falling short and consistently having the same issues.
Yeah. It's really just encouraging stuff to hear. Now, from the issue of finances and money and will they spend more, in the Matt Gelb piece, John Middleton addressed the new ownership, which we talked about yesterday. This is an encouraging sign. If you want them to spend more on the field product, bringing in smaller investors brings more cash flow into the organization. And John Middleton went on to say, like, look, we have hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on the Clearwater facility. We have to upgrade Citizens Bank Park if we want this to be our home forever. He's like, part of it is that, but part of it is being able to spend more and continue to spend this. And Matt Gelb pointed out that 3 of the 4 teams that finished the year this year all had $300 million plus payrolls, which is, there's a correlation between spending and winning. And John Middleton gets that. He said, part of adding the new investors is it broadens our base. It gives us more financial flexibility and more financial depth. That's not the only reason, but it is an important reason. It does seem like they're willing to go big time, whether that's if they finally get one of these Japanese players that they've been so itching to get into the Japanese market more. There's some big guys coming in the next year or two over there, or a Juan Soto or whatever. But it seems like John Middleton is still willing to write. The Trey Turner has not scared him. He is still willing to write big checks when it matters.
Yeah, and I think there's always going to be a willingness with this team. Now, it's a matter of, do these players want to reciprocate the want to be here, of course, and that's the unknown factor of free agency. But I think you're right. They're going to make a play at Juan Soto. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but they're going to make that play. They're going to make a play at Roki Sasaki if he does post. They're going to make a play at a handful of big time name and big money names. I wouldn't be stunned if they did offer a contract to Anthony Santander. I think that
Who did get a qualifying offer, right? He was one of the 13 guys. Yeah.
But my point is, like,
and we'll get into those later.
I think they're certainly going to be players in just about every big time free agent market that they possibly can, and they're going to call around about making deals. And I don't know, the article about or the comments about it being.
It talked about creativity a lot. John Middleton was like, Dave has to get. Yeah, and that's a Bob Nightingale piece, but in the story, John Middleton makes reference to Dave is leading the charge. Dave has to get creative. Everything is on the table. He has permission to be aggressive and think outside the box. And I think the quote was like, we've discussed some of these. They didn't name Juan Soto, but they've discussed creative ideas, and they basically have plans in place that probably involve signings first and then trades second. But the word creative was used like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of conversations this offseason, especially once the hot stove does start to heat up and the big free agents come off the board. You're going to see a lot of post-signing tweets and comments and things like that that say the Phillies were players and the players signed with the Dodgers, or the Phillies were players and they decided to stay in New York, or whatever the case may be. I'm not so sure who it's going to be. Obviously, only time will tell. We don't have a crystal ball to make that decision. But they're going to be players in just about every major market that they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, as you highlighted, Tyler, there are some great names out there in terms of trade prospects, but also free agency that the Phillies can absolutely go after. I know in the chat, you guys are already talking about bullpen arms and possible moves as well. They're going to have to spend some money. And obviously the Phillies have already spent a lot of money. So it's going to have to be a creative way of like weaving in some ways to get, whether it's in Anthony Santander is a name that's come up a lot, but there's some other names out there. Tanner Scott, we've talked about, whether it's bullpen arms or some positional players, possibilities are there. You just have to be able to spend and figure out how to spend.
Yeah. And we'll hit on the last John Middleton quote next after we take care of some business here from our partners. And the first one I'll tell you about is my friends over at Bet365. You can find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Every month, these people are nuts. They're boosting 10,000 bets every single month to help you win more on your bets. We just missed a doozy on Sunday, a little 600 action that we cooked up in the Eagles game. But when you sign up, use code PHLY365, and you can find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. You can get yourself $200 in bonus bets when you deposit $10 and place a $5 bet. Boom. Those bonus bets will hit your account. There is an expiration date on those, so don't let them go to waste. You can use those on futures, props, player props, spreads, and more, and have a good time with it. And Bet365 has the best early payout offers going in the sports gambling world. So whether it's basketball, if your team goes up by 20 points in any game, boom, you're going to get cashed out right then and there on the spot. You can double your winnings with parlays with Bet365's 100% parlay boost. Download the app, use that code PHLY365. In baseball, next season, early payout offers. Still, football, your team goes up by 17 points at any point in the game, boom, you'll get cashed out. That, of course, applies to college football as well. So download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Get those $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Did we
lose you, Renee?
User error. What did you do?
I got muted. I'm so sorry. Let me try that again from the top.
That was a great ad read, Renee. You did awesome.
It was so good. It was so good. My mic was like, we don't even need to hear from you. And with my squeaky voice, as I'm losing my voice, my mic was like, no more. Let me tell you about our friends over at Empire Today. As I was saying, as a fan of interior design, I love the fact that Empire Today makes it much less stressful for you when you're figuring out which floors work for you in your home. And so with Empire Today, you get the convenience of shopping at home. So they have their virtual floor designer, which allows you to be able to see how new floors are going to look in any space. So you can snap a picture. You can easily see how they're going to look and how that floor is going to look in your room. You don't even have to leave the comforts of your home. If you have a cold like myself, you really don't have to leave the comforts of your home. You can shop from home with their virtual floor designer. Also with Empire Today, you get quick and professional installation, which we love because it makes it a lot less stressful of having to wonder, how those installations are going to play out, how quickly it's going to happen. Don't worry. It's very fast with Empire Today. And they also have other benefits for you, such as a price match guarantee to make sure you can get some great pricing as well. So with Empire Today, they pride themselves on convenience. They pride themselves on professionalism. They pride themselves on great quality. And with it being so overwhelming trying to figure out the thousands of floor options to choose from, Empire Today makes it easier for you to find the best one for your home and for your budget. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off as a discount when you use promo code PHLY. Some restrictions do apply, and head on over to empirettoday.com/PHLY for more details.
All right, this is the PH
today. I can't even sing.
Sounds like you got to get over to Rite Aid, Renee.
I know. I did.
Okay, good. What do you got there? Tea, coffee? What are we working with? Bourbon?
I don't drink coffee.
Renee doesn't drink coffee.
Yeah, that's right. You don't.
Dang
Just
it.
tea. Yeah.
It's just a nice
milk.
I make
You have a cup of milk?
tea. I did have milk, actually.
Yeah.
I did drink that. It's actually over here on my desk, but I'm not going to show you the empty glass. I make.
Look what the girls got me for my birthday.
Nice.
That's so
Yeah,
cute.
a little Phillies Yeti from the
You have
girls.
coffee in yours?
This is water, and then that's just scotch. I'm just drinking a coffee mug full of scotch. All right. Let's get back into it. One last quote. Yeah. One last quote, and then we'll talk about the qualifying offers around baseball. The Phillies made some moves yesterday, which are very exciting. We'll get into all of that. Yeah, but the last quote I wanted to share with you from the Matt Gelb piece on The Athletic from John Middleton down in San Antonio. When asked about continuing to hit the tax threshold penalties, because the Phillies are approaching the third tier, which is awesome that we have an owner that's just like, yeah, screw it, spend. Matt asked him about that, and here's the quote. Neither Dave nor I have broached that strategy of getting out, and he set it up by asking about, is there ever talk of getting out of it, resetting, and building back up? And Middleton said, neither Dave nor I have broached that strategy, never talked about it. Neither of us has never thought about it individually, and neither of us have ever voiced it to the other, and neither has our CFO, John Nicholas, for that matter. My guess is, for better or worse, we've chosen our path. So no, I don't see that happening. The rules are the rules. You just follow them, and you kind of accept the consequences. Hell yeah, John Middleton. Spend every last cent you got, man. Screw that. We're not getting out of it. I'm in this tax threshold penalty. Keep racking up the fines, man. I love it. Sorry, that really excited me because that's what you want to hear from an ownership group. Like he's just like, no, screw it. I have endless amounts of money. I love my team, and I'm gonna run it the way it should be run. Awesome quote from John Middleton.
So, I'm not as excited as you are, Mr. Scotch.
A lot. There's about 28 other owners that will show you why you should be excited about that quote.
Well, I also just can't physically bring myself to that level of a voice of excitement because it's going to be like a squawking bird. So that's my excitement. I will say though, I always believe in sports. You have to be willing to spend. It's an investment with a high return on investment. If you don't spend money and you're not paying for again, Yankees, Dodgers, two of the highest teams across Major League Baseball in terms of spending. If you're not spending money, and at this point in baseball, it's millions and billions of dollars that you're spending, you're not going to have a chance to win a division title.
Not really.
A World
it's tough.
Series. Like, you have to be willing to spend money. So open up that checkbook. You have all the funds and do it. Do the things.
So
spend every penny.
This is a quick article from Baseball America from the early portions of this year, which January of 2024 feels like it was 7 million years ago. It's talking about basically you have to spend money to win. And, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be the top one, right? You don't have to be the Dodgers, every year. You don't have to be Texas when they went out and spent big or whatever the case may be. But you do need to spend at least a little bit. And they were basically saying that 20 out of the last 29 World Series title winners were in the top 10 in money spent. They've had
what's that trend on TikTok? You got to show me the money. You know that one? Show me the money. John Middleton's showing you the money.
I think give me my money. Give me my money.
They have had
whatever. I'm old.
16 different organizations have won a World Series since 2000. And it's not crazy to say the organizations that have not. Now, some of them have spent money, like San Diego has spent money as of late,
sure.
But for the most part, they were pretty dormant in free agency for a really long time. But for the most part, the teams of the non-16, the 14 other teams that did not win a World Series in the last now going on 25 years, there's a pretty common trend of an unwillingness to spend money. And we talked about it, earlier in the show. It was for years the Orioles. It was for years the Pirates. It was for years. And you can put together good teams, right? The Pirates had a couple of years where they were really fun. They were really exciting. They lost back-to-back wild card rounds. Toronto spent a bunch of money, didn't get the results that they were looking for. So you could spend a bunch of money and not win. You can spend no money and not win. But the common theme surrounding all of this, and the Dodgers just made it 21 of 30 because that article was written before the season started. The common theme in all of this is you do have to spend money in order to be competitive. It doesn't have to be the bazillions of dollars, but you got to spend some money.
Wow.
Yeah, and reading this story again by Matt Gelb on The Athletic. Check it out. He sat down with Middleton yesterday at the GM's meetings. It's a short story, with just some quotes from John. The feeling I left after reading it was like, damn, this dude is pot committed. Like, he is not backing out. He is not going to show any cowardice. He is going to spend money. And he says, the new ownership group gives them that ability to do things that they need to do. And it begs the question, like, you remember yesterday I said my Juan Soto aspirations grew from 5 to 7%. Reading this story, I think I went from 7 to 8.5%.
Wow.
So it's grown 3.5% in 2 days.
Okay, so
we're not talking about Blue Chew.
I'm not gonna hold you. I literally knew you were gonna do that. And I should have cut you off. I should have cut you off before you even got there.
You let me the silence. I
knew you were gonna work in an inappropriate whatever.
Floor's yours, guys. Yeah.
I will say though, I don't think this makes me more optimistic for Juan Soto, but I do think this makes me more optimistic for some exciting names. I still don't think the Phillies are going to be able to afford him. But thank you, K.
I don't know. I feel like they're ready to just say, screw it. Burn money, burn.
I would love that. And I hope I'm wrong. So I'm going to continue to speak, hoping that I'm wrong. But I also feel like this means to me they're going to possibly go after like 2 flashy names that are exciting. There's the Tanner Scotts or Devin Williams or a Jurickson Profar, or I don't even know. Alex Bregman requers, have to move on from Alec Boehm. There's some names out there.
Well, we're going to get to that shortly because Bob Nightingale named names.
I know. Now
but Alex Bregman, real quick, I'm growing less and less enthralled with the idea of him just because of the age. I think he's 32 this offseason. I just prefer to go younger because most of your core is already old. So, like, if they got Alec Bregman, 31. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think I'd rather have Boehm at this point. It's close.
No, that's fair. I mean,
a lot less money for Boehm, younger. Yeah, fair. I don't know.
But he is 31, as you mentioned. There are some numbers on him that are interesting. He hasn't really been the same since that 2018-2019 season. I know a lot of people have talked about Bregman in our chat, so just to put the information out there for you, Hasn't been the same since that stretch where he had 36 home runs on 108 RBIs with a 970 OPS. And then when you look at this past season, he did have an opportunity to hit 288 with 22 home runs and 862 OPS over his final 94 games. Started the season out slow with 4 home runs and a 589 OPS, and then improved that 206 batting average in the first portion of the season to a 288. So ended well. And I think that's why people might have some hope that he'd be a good fit here, but he has been listed as Astros, Diamondbacks, Mariners as like the potential fits for him. Haven't really heard much about the Phillies in the conversation with him, of course, because of Bohm.
Yeah, I'd be interested with Bregman specifically because unless there, you talk about getting creative and a willingness to spend money, and now I'm going to be hypocritical about what I'm about to say is he's going to get a pretty substantial contract, and I wonder. And Renee, you brought up the splits because he was not good and the Astros weren't good for the first month and a half of the season, and then they played some tremendous baseball down the stretch, to run away with the West and end up winning the division, and he was much better. And so you're going to look at the two like 60-ish range, and you're going to go, okay, it's fine. He had 30 doubles. His OBP was low. He was only a 315 OBP. He did win the Gold Glove this year, so he is a better defender than Alec Bohm. But I wonder in this individual instance. I'm not saying everything we just talked about for the last 30 minutes is a moot point, but in this individual instance, if the Phillies are going to look at the money between the two and say the evaluation of Bohm is high enough where you're going to live with the years of arbitration and pay him $8, $9, $10 million as opposed to what Bregman's going to get, which is probably in the 18 to 22 range.
Oh, I would even think maybe a little more, maybe approach 25. Yeah.
So if Bregman's going to get all that money, and again, the team has said they're showing a willingness to spend the money, but in this individual isolated incident, I'm not sure the cost of Bregman's contract would outweigh what they perceive Alec Bohm to be.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break, and then there's a story from Bob Nightingale, which does name some names, and we'll take a look at that and what it might mean for the Phillies. But first, let's tell you about some of our friends. And that is our friends. They're located The Godfather sleeps right upstairs. No, but our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union, they're headquartered like 2 miles down the road from me, right in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. And if you're not familiar with credit unions, it's great to have them in your corner. It's better than any bank because you're just a nameless, faceless person at your traditional bank. At a credit union, you're part of the family. And, sometimes their savings, they come back to you. And whether you're thinking about saving for a home renovation or, some emergency funds or education expensive, whatever, the people at TrueMark can walk you through a home equity line of credit. If that's something you're thinking about saving up for or need some liquidity freed up so you can do those big projects on your house, whatever it may be. And credit unions, they have all the same technology that your traditional banks do. With TrueMark Financial's mobile app, you can access your account anytime, anywhere. You can check your balances, view transactions, make transfers, pay bills, all of that from the convenience right there of your mobile device. You can even add the mobile wallet for easy in-store and online payments. And if you're trying to buy a house in this economy, well, talk to the people at TrueMark because they can help you with their mortgage specialists, offer guidance on loan options and terms, help you set up savings to achieve the home you're looking for. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and an equal opportunity lender. For more information on them, you can visit truemark.com/PHLY.
All right. Well, as someone that's, for whatever reason, lost my voice, and I still have no idea where it went or how that happened, but I do know where I can go, or where I went, I should say, to stock up on medications to feel better. That's with our friends over at Rite Aid, because it's not great. Although I think it's kind of cool when I lose my voice, just not for my work. Outside of my job, I think it's very cool. I feel like I like the rasp, but I don't like the feeling. And with Rite Aid, you can get rid of the feeling of any sort of cold. They do have a tremendous line of over-the-counter medications that provide you with all the relief that you need. I stocked up on teas and honey and over-the-counter medicine like Mucinex and different things. And with Rite Aid, they just have your back. Whatever you need, you can always walk in and get it, whether it's their LO Market, which provides you with some great pantry items, or their refreshing, hydrating drinks, which I'm also drinking as well because it's great to stay hydrated with your coconut water and different refreshing, hydrating drinks, or even their vaccines. Flu shot, COVID-19. I know my mom was just calling me yesterday because she actually went into Rite Aid and got herself a COVID-19, well, a flu vaccine, I should say. And she was saying, I should do the same. If you are looking to take advantage of getting your flu shot, the CDC does recommend getting a flu shot every year because it does allow you to stay ahead and be proactive around the flu. Not to mention for children, it decreases their chances of a life-threatening flu by 75%. So with Rite Aid, you have the ability to walk in same day. And I actually double checked, because I say this every ad read, and I really went back and looked at my doctor or reached out to my doctor. The next available time to book for them is not until 2025 in like the spring. So nobody has time to waste like that. You need to get in today, get your medicine, get your vaccines, whatever it is. And with Rite Aid, you have the ability to walk right in same day and take care of yourself and your family. So head on over to Rite Aid. If you are looking to get any sort of vaccines, you can do so by walking into your local Rite Aid or scheduling online at riteaid.com. State age and health restrictions do apply. But again, ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for more details to help you get started.
All right. Good job. You made it through. All right. The Bob Nightingale, yes, John piece. He named names. But first, real quick, the Phillies, and we are going to get into the Carlos Estevez and Jeff Hoffman situation, but the Phillies made some moves yesterday, guys. I don't know. I'm pumped. Right-handed pitcher Devin Sweet was acquired from the Detroit Tigers for cash considerations and selected to the 40-man roster. Right-hand pitcher John McMillan was claimed off of waivers from the Miami Marlins. Right-handed pitcher Alan Rangel was selected to the 40-man roster. And right-handed pitchers Junior Marte, Luis Ortiz, Freddie Tarnock, and left-handed pitcher Colby Allard, and infielder, how could we ever forget, Rodolfo Castro, have cleared waivers, been outrighted, and are free agents. You guys pumped?
Well, you didn't give all the stats of our guys.
Oh, I didn't really think we had to.
Sweet, McMillan, and
are they
Rangel.
Real people?
They are real people. But remember, this time last year, it was Michael Mercado, it was Spencer Turnbull that came a little bit later. They all turned out to be real people as well. So hopefully these three are not only real, but they do something real good or real well. And so for a 28-year-old, Sweet, like that, guys, was 9-6.
Like Fievel.
I know. I actually really think it's cool when you lose your voice. Like I still to this day think it's like a fascinating thing.
You could just pick up cigs.
I don't want to.
You don't want to pick up that habit.
I value my lungs and all of my cardiovascular system.
Not committed to the bit. I got you.
I am, but it just stinks for the job. But let me tell you about 28-year-old Sweet, who hopefully does not stink in his job. 9-6 with a 3.91 ERA. Gave up 33 earned runs in 76 innings pitched with 111 strikeouts, 38 walks in 52 games in AAA Toledo in the Tigers organization last season. So he did average 13.1 strikeouts per 9 in that stretch, which was third in the International League.
If he's real.
Let's hope he's real. He's a North Carolina native, Greensboro, North Carolina. McMillan is another guy from Lufkin, Texas. And he was originally signed as a free agent with the Royals. And when you look at McMillan's 14 appearances over the last 2 seasons with the Kansas City Royals and Marlins, combined for a 1.69 ERA in that stretch with 3 earned runs, 16 innings pitched with 21 strikeouts to 5 walks. And also with the Marlins last season went 2-1 with a 1.50 ERA. 26 years old, so young. And then 27-year-old Rangel pitched in 187 games in 9 seasons. 9 seasons in the minor leagues with a 4.44 ERA, which when numbers repeat like that makes me a little nervous. 4.44 ERA with a 39.56 record. A lot of strikeouts because it's a long time that we're looking at. So 826 strikeouts to 253 walks. What does that mean? Well, in his last 11 appearances, 6 of those starts between AAA Lehigh Valley and Single A Clearwater, He had a 4.02 ERA with 31 and 1/3 innings pitched. He's bounced around, Rangel, but he's from Hermosillo, Mexico, originally. So there's our guys. That's our new guys. Get excited, guys, for Rangel, McMillan, what? And Sweet.
I appreciate you doing all that work because I sure wasn't going to do it.
Well, they gave us the stats.
Well, the team press release is just kind
I
of.
didn't do any digging. I got to credit Philly.
See, that would require me to read, and I don't do well there.
Reading's hard.
Oh, wow. We like to read, guys.
Do we?
We do. It's good for us. So,
all right. Well,
so
read this yesterday.
And hello to our newbies.
Yeah, let's get talking about people that actually matter to the Phillies in 2025. Those people likely do not. But Bob Nightingale yesterday had this to say. And Bob Knight, I used to have it tracked where I knew like which super agents had which guys in their pocket, and I forget where Nightingale is. I do think Boris uses them a lot, so I always try to like look at it through the scope of where they're getting this information. Not to discredit Bob Nightingale, I'm just trying to get a view of where it's coming from. So this is what he had to say in USA Today. The Phillies can't believe they don't have a ring in the Bryce Harper era. After knocking on the door for the past few years, they are willing to make a huge move to change their fate. Dave Dombrowski, president of baseball operations, has not internally discussed pursuing Soto with his staff. Sad. But is painfully aware they need to shake up their lineup. Simply, scouts say they're just too easy to pitch to come crunch time with their big swingers and contact-challenged hitters. If someone needs a slugger like Nick Castellanos or outfield help in Brandon Marsh or third baseman Alec Boehm, the Phillies are listening. But don't believe for a second the Phillies won't keep spending, even if it means going beyond the third luxury tax threshold of $281 million. For the right player, John Middleton told reporters, I have a high degree of confidence that Dave and I would go over the third limit. So, that stuff's all been kind of confirmed that John Middleton's willing to spend. First time we've heard the names Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm, and Brandon Marsh has been alluded to, by Matt Gelb actually as having value in the league. So that's kind of been like hinted at that they would possibly listen on offers for him. But Nick Castellanos and Alec Boehm, we've talked about it. Alec Boehm and Ranger Suarez are probably your two spiciest trade candidates if you wanted to enact change for the sake of enacting big change. Nick Castellanos, I'd be shocked if you could really get much unless somebody was willing to pick up his money. Interesting to hear, though.
Yeah, I'm not stunned at all about Brandon Marsh. I think that's the plausible, likely trade candidate if the Phillies were to shake things up. He's young, he's under team control, and again, young is I guess relative. He's young compared to what the Phillies currently have.
Sure.
He's under team control. He's proven to you he can hit right-handed pitching. He's a very, very good defensive left fielder. He's a serviceable defensive center fielder. And we know what the deficiencies are, right? He can't hit left-handed pitching. He strikes out a lot. He doesn't hit high fastballs particularly well. But you kind of know what Brandon Marsh is, and if there's a team that's looking for that mold of a player, it would make a ton of sense for the Phillies to move Brandon Marsh if they were to move anybody. The other two, I'm a little more surprised were named by names. Were named by name, especially with Nick Castellanos.
First of all, I want to just say, these scouts, such geniuses to say that the Phillies have become too easy to pitch to in crunch time with their big swingers. We've been saying this since, honestly, early last year that this team was very predictable, and they just ran it back with the same group. So happy that apparently now it's clicked, the reality that we already knew for the Phillies. But I think to the point of like a Nick Castellanos being named, and as you're saying, Tyler, it being surprising to me just shows the willingness to have conversations, because as Mickey Durkin's pointing out in the chat, teams like the White Sox, the Royals, other small market teams would bite on Casty. And knowing that the Phillies do not have a lot of financial wiggle room because of some of these bigger contracts, if you're able to make a move on a guy that works to allow you to open up some space to bring in someone new, even though Nick Castellanos, Mr. 162, or even an Alec Boehm are guys they're very good players. You don't need to move them. You don't need to upgrade in those areas in right field and third base. But if the upgrade happens on the financial side, where you're able to get something back for them that bigger picture works, that's the business reality of this. So I think, to me, what this is saying is we're not just looking to move the guys that are quote unquote younger and increase their trade value or their market value. We're interested in moving whoever makes sense depending on the deals, and nobody's off the table aside from, like, of course, the top few players. So I think this is just showing not only are they painfully aware, as the term says, but they're also being aggressive in how they're pursuing these conversations. So good. Have conversations on anyone, see what happens, and you can't be mad at it as long as it's a good return on investment.
I think all good teams should have conversations. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to manifest itself in any capacity, but I think you should have conversations and, put your ear to the ground and see what's the pulse of the league and where the other GMs are. I think that's part of due diligence, part of doing your job.
Mickey Durkin in the chat says White Sox, Royals, other small market teams might bite on Castellanos. It's possible. It's not really like an unpalatable number. It's $20 million per year. You got 2 more years remaining on it. It's really not bad. So, I mean, I would imagine he does have value in this league as a guy that can put up 35 to 40 doubles and, 20 to 25 home runs and approach 100 RBIs every year. We'll see. As we've all said, kind of open to a lot here this offseason. But left field, as has been noted, is, the easiest path to not being creative. If you were just going to throw money at a position, it's likely left field. And then, of course, the bullpen, which Dave Dombrowski has talked about as well. So we talked about Devin Williams yesterday. Jeff Hoffman does not get the qualifying offer expected. That shouldn't be surprising news. I think his open market projection was a little cheaper than I thought. I think Spot Track had it at like 6.5 or 7 mil. I would have guessed he would have been 8.5 to 10 mil, and he might get that. The market projection doesn't mean that, but the qualifying offer would have been way more than that. So you take your chances in free agency. No reason to offer him or Carlos Estevez the qualifying offer. Well, Estevez isn't even a candidate for it because he didn't spend the whole year with them. But no reason to offer Jeff Hoffman a qualifying offer there, especially if you feel good about him wanting to be here. You pay the man his money.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, with Carlos Estevez ineligible and with it coming down to Spencer Turnbull and Jeff Hoffman, did not expect either of them to receive a qualifying offer. There were 13 other guys that did across the league. None of them are Phillies. So the reality is, we know for a fact in terms of bullpen arms, not everybody's coming back from this trio. And it could be one of them back. It could be, I would anticipate it to be one of them back, and probably Jeff Hoffman. But
I would think so if I had to bet today. Hoffman's the guy.
Like, as we've heard from various sources, including Matt Gelb's piece, they are looking to bring in 2 bullpen arms that they can build around Jose Alvarado, Orion Kirkering, and Matt Strahm with. So that's interesting in itself. Of who would that be? What does that look like? But I think, to me, if I had to choose between them, I don't mind the fact that Carlos Estevez was a new piece. You didn't get a full season of him, so you don't really know entirely what he can look like with a full year with the Phillies. Whereas Jeff Hoffman, we had a chance to now see him in a full season, to see if the 2023 Jeff was, a fluke, or if that really was his ceiling. I think they both, unfortunately, as we know, struggled in the postseason in a sense, and even down the stretch. So it's kind of the same. It's a matter of who do you trust more is going to be able to take that next step next season. So I don't know. I kind of I'm okay with either one, to be honest. I think I might be like one of the few people that doesn't actually care who they keep of the 2, because I think they both are very interchangeable and very similar. So,
well, I've been on the record for a while now, probably dating back to like mid-June, early July, of saying that Jeff Hoffman deserves a contract extension, and he's going to get paid. I don't know if it's with the Phillies or not.
Yeah.
But if I had to make my choice, to me, the choice is fairly clear. I would take Jeff Hoffman over Carlos Estevez. With that being said, Jamie, you brought up the Spotrac valuation of him in the $6.5–7 million range.
You go Spotrac?
Who knows? Who knows?
Right? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Nobody knows what it is.
Track.
But their valuation was 6.5, 7, whereas like MLB trade value was like it could be a 4-year, $44–45 million deal.
That's what I thought would have been fair.
I would not be stunned if Jeff Hoffman ends up making $10+ million a season. I think that what the offers are going to come in at is going to be kind of directly proportionate to if the Phillies re-sign him or not. I have a feeling they have a number in their head that says this is our threshold. And if you get offered over that, that's awesome, dude. Congratulations. Good for you. And if you don't, we would love to have you back at, and I'm going to say it's probably somewhere in the $9 million range would be their max capacity for him, I would think. If I were them, I would have worked to have gotten a deal done sooner rather than later. But obviously he's going to hit unrestricted free agency. He's going to get offers, and rightfully so. His numbers were fantastic from joining the Phillies. You brought up, Jamie, earlier in the show how Caleb Cotham did a really nice job with him, kind of unlocking his sweeper to work with his splitter. His fastball location was better. He kept the ball in the yard. He didn't give up a lot of home runs. You know, everybody gives up home runs in Colorado, but he did a really nice job of keeping the ball in the yard for the most part over 2 seasons. ERA was fantastic. He was in the top 10, I believe, in ERA amongst qualified relievers who threw more than 100 innings. Strikeout rate got better. Walk rate got better. Hard hit contact went down, which is a good thing. Jeff Hoffman trended in the right direction pretty much every statistical category that you could think of. I think he's going to get a lot of money. I don't know if the Phillies are going to be the top offer. I think they're going to offer a respectable number, but I wouldn't be stunned if his AAV is over $10 million a year.
Yeah, I think they're going to have interest in Devin Williams and Tanner Scott, honestly. And, you know, if they can squeeze in a Jeff Hoffman too, I think it all depends on, you know, what offensive upgrades come. Because if all of a sudden Juan Soto's like, hey, yo, the Mets are offering me $525, but I want to talk to you guys last. You know, that changes everything. You have to be in that conversation. You have to be involved. You know, it's not a coincidence 3 of the 4 teams. Obviously, you can't sign every $300+ million free agent, but, you know, if he seriously wants to consider being here, you have to get involved in that conversation. So then that affects your bullpen and a lot of other things. So, like, if you don't get a massive offensive upgrade, maybe you say, hey, Jeff Hoffman and Tanner Scott, here we go. There's the bullpen. We make some minor tweaks to the lineup, and we go that way. We'll see what happens. It's gonna be fun.
I don't necessarily disagree about prioritizing the player that you want the most, but if the big name home run swing free agent is your priority, if it is a Juan Soto or somebody along that line,
say Santander,
I think you have to almost put aside extra money for them no matter what. And if that's the case, you're saying we're going over the luxury tax threshold, because I don't think you can hold off on signing your auxiliary pieces, the guys that you need, in hopes of making your big swing because of spending the money. Because Middleton said it, they would do it for the right player. Obviously, Juan Soto type player is the right player, but I think you still want to go out and spend your money to acquire the guys.
My point was just, if you get Soto, you're not getting 2 bullpen upgrades.
Correct.
You're probably just getting 1.
But the likelihood of Soto signing early, I think, is probably pretty low. These big-time free agents generally don't sign till after Christmas, after the new year. I mean, I don't think they're going to do it where, you know, it's the Bryce Harper, Manny Machado push it till March thing or late February thing. But, you know, I think that there's plausibility to it, them not signing until January. And if that's the case, Hoffman's going to sign, Estevez is going to sign, any other bullpen pieces you're thinking about, whether it be a Tommy Canley or Andrew Kittredge or whoever it might be, those guys they're all going to be signed by then.
Yeah, and I think to your points, it also, to me, for the Hoffman Estevez conversation, I think Estevez is someone that you could probably get for a cheaper deal in that sense than a Jeff Hoffman, who absolutely has earned more. So when you look at the other names, I know we've been talking a lot about Tanner Scott and Devin Williams, especially with Williams, since the Brewers are I don't know what they're doing, messing around with Devin Williams and declining his club option. But then there are those reports when you hear a team like the A's. The A's are shopping. They're looking to trade. Something that we have heard from out of their camp is that they are actively looking to figure out some suitors for guys like Brent Rooker, Mason Miller, a couple names that jumped out off the page. So there are some other trade pieces that are beyond just free agency that might be out there as well for the Phillies of potential moves. So I think if they were able to upgrade the bullpen, in my opinion, it's going to come down to, are you going to get 2 high leverage closer arms, or are you going to get 1 high leverage closer arm and then a guy similar to what you got with Tanner Banks that was more of an innings eater, lower leverage type of reliever. But I do think right now, when you look at the relievers on the market, Jeff Hoffman, of course, is one of the best. So they're going to try to see what they can do to keep him. But I think if he's knowing that he's going to probably get some major offers from other clubs, it might mean we're going to take less with an Estevez and see if we can also put our chips in on a Devin Williams, or even maybe a move for Mason Miller or someone like that. So
Well,
I think
somebody mentioned the Mets. Now, do you want to hear the latest on one of their mouthpieces?
Oh boy, yeah.
John Heyman is a Mets, a Boris mouthpiece for sure, and he's very pro New York. He lives up there.
Very.
He stands for his teams. Well, he has a post on the New York Post, and it's basically, how should the Mets spend Steve Cohen's fortunes? Would you like to hear his? Yes. Would you like to hear his 5-step plan for the Mets? Number 1, can you guys guess?
Sign Juan Soto.
Juan Soto.
Ding, ding, ding. John Heyman says, go for Soto, number 1. I don't think this needs to be suggested to Steve, as he's known to go for the best in whatever he collects. His art collection, he mentions, and $8.5 million sharks. So number 1 is that. Yeah, if Juan Soto becomes a Met, that's going to suck. There's no sugarcoating it. Number 2, he says go for Pete Alonso or Christian Walker for first base.
Yeah.
I would hate to see Christian Walker on the Mets. Pete Alonso I can deal with.
I would rather Christian Walker on the Mets than Pete Alonso.
Really?
Pete Alonso is a better player than Christian Walker.
Yeah.
Christian Walker is the best defensive first baseman in baseball. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you got a guy, Pete Alonso, who had a 5-year low in home runs this year. He hit 34.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Pete Alonso probably is the better player. I just feel like Christian Walker is like a more consistent player. Like, and if you get Juan Soto, you can afford to lose some home runs from that stupid face of his. Maybe it's just my sports hatred for Pete Alonso. I don't know. Whatever. Number 3 for the Mets. If they don't get Alonso or Walker, consider Alec Bregman.
Alex?
They're going to spend a lot of money.
So if they're going to sign Alex Bregman, where do they move Mark Vientos to?
Right.
Let me see what he says in his little synopsis.
Like,
he's a terrific all-around player who'd aid their average defense. Stearns says the Mets believe emerging star Mark Vientos can play third or first base, so that gives them extra.
He can play first, sure. That makes sense.
I was going to say, he seems like, he's 26, 25, and he seems like he's got a little more versatility and athleticism to be able to transition to a different position. So I guess, is that really?
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Number 4. This kind of hurts a little bit. Sign one of Max Fried or Corbin Burns. This is telling me that Steve Cohen is about to light $1 billion on fire.
Yeah.
One of Fried or Burns?
Well, Burns is actually expected to get about a $200 million plus contract in free agency. I know that just literally just dropped, that his number is looking north of 200 million. So it's not going to be, those are 2 big names on the market, and they already have a Sean Manaea and Luis Severino who did receive qualifying offers. But if they're able to bring in a Corbin Burns or Max Fried, that'd be so annoying.
Well, number 5, you just mentioned them. Sign at least 2 more starters, starting with Sean Manaea.
Yeah, I don't think Manaea and Severino are going to be back. I think that they're both going to get paid pretty handsomely after the season, especially the second half of the season and the offseason or the postseason that both of them had. Is Quintana a free agent as well? I feel like he might be. Because, he is. So he's also a free agent. So 3 of your starters are hitting free agency this year. They're going to have to balance, signing some of these guys versus feeling comfortable with, David Peterson stepping into a everyday larger role like he did this year. Probably, a lower leverage arm. I don't know their farm system all that well to give you a name. But it's going to be, you have 3 guys who are probably going to command $15-ish million a season. Are you going to sign all 3 of them again? Probably not. I wouldn't be stunned though if they get at least one of them back.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah,
3
and
of
then the
them,
final.
they accounted
sorry,
for
go ahead.
37% of the team's innings this season. So they are probably they're going to need to bring at least one of them back. But as we know, their price tag for each of them has definitely gone up, especially Sean Manaea's numbers, as he's expected to get a good pay raise. So
one starting pitcher I wouldn't be stunned, and I don't know how he feels about the organization, so maybe he will not look. Maybe he'll look elsewhere because he was traded from them.
Thank you, diehards, for hanging out with us today.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets, in lieu of knowing that they've got all these guys, were to make a 1-year offer to Max Scherzer.
Yeah, I did.
What is he going to be, 42?
He's going to be old. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But, obviously still got some stuff. I know he's been hurt a good bit, over the last couple of years. He's 39 right now.
Oh, he's not even 40 yet. Okay.
But, and I say the last couple of years, actually, it was really only last year. He threw at least 150 innings for 14 consecutive seasons, dating back to 2023. I mean, he is super reliable.
I was going to say, he's one of those names on the market that I feel like aren't talked. I mean, not for the Phillies' sake, but in general, not talked about as much, because to Mickey Durkin's point, there are some other starters on the market. You say Kikuchi. I think I said that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, as you mentioned, Walker Buehler, Frankie Montas, Jose Quintana, who we already highlighted, Nick Pivetta. So there are some other options of some, Shane Bieber, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Some other names out there that even Blake Snell actually is another one that's back on the market again.
Oh, yeah, he opted out. Probably smart financially for him. Last one for the Mets. John Heyman says sign or trade for a center fielder. Luis Robert has been mentioned. I'm waiting to see if Cedric Mullins becomes available, and not opposed to bringing back Harrison Bader as well. So that was John Heyman's outline for the Mets. He said Luis Robert, there's belief in baseball that he would be better for a contending team. I simply suggest the Phillies.
Yeah, not the Mets. Don't go to the Mets.
It sounds like Steve Cohen, my big fear and the takeaway there was he's going to spend over $1 billion this offseason if Juan Soto agrees to play there. So that sucks. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow we'll have a lot to get into. We didn't even get to the Dave Dombrowski grade today because the Middleton story dropped so late. But yeah, really encouraging stuff to hear from John Middleton today. So the offseason is officially underway. The GMs meetings are happening. I have MLB hot stove, the network on in front of me, and all the GMs are hopping on the TV and talking, and we'll get more and more rumors, and we'll be with you every day at 11 a.m. talking about all of it, and we'll see what happens. But I do think the Phillies are going to change a lot of stuff. I feel like a big off season is ahead in terms of change.
My final thought is as we're going out the door, given stories and updates like the one you just were reading around John Heyman on the Mets, to me, if I'm John Middleton, if I'm Dave Dombrowski, this is lighting a fire under me. You cannot sit back and watch other teams aggressively pursue these big names and not be moved to do the same. So I'm hoping that this is like the early discourse that is needed. They already are, as we've been hearing from reports from Matt Galb and Bob Nightingale, aware now they're aware that they need to make some roster moves and make some changes and have some conversations. So let's hope that with all that's going on around the league, specifically the Mets, we're watching them, that the Phillies also are like, okay, we gotta make sure we're keeping up, because this could be bad if the Mets go out and spend over $1 billion and the Phillies don't do much of anything.
Well, I think they'll do stuff.
I think so.
I think we're in good hands and stewardship with John Middleton.
So
that's going to do it. Yeah, that's going to do it for us here today on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. and hopefully some spicy rumors come out of the GM's meetings in San Antonio today. But for Renee Washington, Tyler Zulli, I am Jay Lynch. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m., everyone. Have a great day.
We all silly like the mayor.